Welcome to another journey into the unexplained, where we explore stories that defy explanation and challenge our understanding of reality. Before we begin, I should mention that engaging with this content, whether through likes, comments, or sharing, helps these forgotten stories reach others who might have pieces to the puzzle we're missing. And trust me, today's mystery is one that could use all the perspectives it can get. There's an old saying that truth is stranger than fiction. But in today's story, the line between what we know and what remains hidden might make you question everything you think you understand about reality. Let me take you to a place in downtown Los Angeles. If you've ever walked down Main Street in downtown Los Angeles, you might have passed by an imposing 14-story building with a worn facade and ornate Gothic details. The air around it feels heavier somehow, thick with decades of history and tragedy. The marble steps leading to its entrance are worn smooth by countless footsteps, and the brass fixtures have long since lost their luster, now bearing a patina that speaks of age and neglect. From the outside, it looks like just another aging piece of LA's architectural history. But the Cecil Hotel holds secrets far darker than its weathered exterior suggests. You see, the Cecil Hotel isn't just any historic building. The moment you step inside, you're hit with the distinct smell of old carpet and musty air, mixed with whatever industrial-strength cleaner the staff uses to maintain the place. The lobby's high ceilings echo with every footstep, and the original Art Deco details, though faded, still hint at the hotel's former grandeur. Since opening its doors in 1927, it has been the site of numerous murders, suicides, and unexplained deaths. Let me give you some examples. In 1934, a guest named Benjamin Dodich was found dead in his room, having taken his own life. In 1937, Grace Lee Marg fell from a 9th-story window. In 1962, Pauline Otten jumped from the 9th floor, landing on George Giannini, killing them both. The hotel earned such a notorious reputation that locals started calling it the Suicide by the 1960s. But here's the thing. During the 1980s, it was even home to not one, but two confirmed serial killers. Richard Ramirez, known as the Night Stalker, lived on the 14th floor while terrorizing Los Angeles. He would often return to the Cecil covered in blood, and nobody would bat an eye. That's just how commonplace strange occurrences were at the Cecil. The hotel's $14 per night rate and no questions asked policy made it a perfect base for his reign of terror. And then there was Austrian killer Jack Unterweger, who stayed there in 1991, while literally writing articles about LA's red light district, all while murdering sex workers in the area. He specifically chose the Cecil because of its proximity to the neighborhoods where he hunted his victims. But what happened in 2013 would add an entirely new chapter to the Cecil's dark history. A chapter that would captivate millions around the world and spawn countless theories about what really occurred within those walls. This is the story of 21-year-old Elisa Lam and the strange circumstances that led to one of the most puzzling deaths in recent memory. It's January 26, 2013, and Elisa Lam has just checked into the Cecil Hotel. The front desk is dimly lit, the ancient fluorescent tubes casting a sickly yellow glow over the worn counter. Behind the desk, a wall of brass keys hangs like silent sentinels, each one holding its own stories of past guests. Elisa is traveling alone, something she's done before, and she's excited to explore Los Angeles as part of her solo trip along the West Coast. What many people don't realize is that by 2013, the Cecil Hotel had been partially renovated and rebranded as Stay on Main, marketing itself as a budget-friendly tourist hotel. But beneath the fresh paint and new signage, it still retained much of its original character and its darker elements. The narrow hallways still creaked with every step, and the old pipes hummed and rattled behind the walls like restless spirits. Elisa is a student from Vancouver, British Columbia. She's bright, creative, and maintains an active Tumblr blog where she shares her thoughts and experiences. Her parents are somewhat worried about her traveling alone, but Elisa has convinced them she'll be fine. She's responsible, stays in regular contact with them, and has her entire trip planned out. But what her parents don't fully know is that Elisa has been struggling. She's been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression, and she's on several medications to help manage her conditions. These medications are crucial for maintaining her stability. A detail that would become increasingly important as events unfold. The first few days of Elisa's stay seem normal enough. She's originally booked into a shared room where the ancient radiator clanks through the night and the windows rattle with every passing siren from Skid Row below. Other guests complain about her odd behavior. She's writing notes and leaving them for her roommates, sometimes appearing agitated or making strange gestures. The hotel staff moves her to a private room to avoid further issues. But here's where things start to take an unexpected turn. On January 31st, Elisa's parents don't receive their daily check-in call from their daughter. At first, they're concerned but not panicked. Maybe she just got busy exploring the city. But when another day passes with no contact, their worry deepens. This isn't like Elisa at all. They try calling her cell phone, but it goes straight to voicemail. Their texts go unanswered. You see, what nobody knows yet is that Elisa Lam has vanished without a trace. The LAPD launches an investigation into Elisa's disappearance. They interview hotel staff and guests, their voices echoing through the cavernous lobby as they piece together the last known movements of the missing student. Nobody seems to have any useful information about where she might have gone. They bring in search dogs to scour the hotel, the animals' nails clicking against the worn tile floors as they sniff every corner, but the animals find nothing conclusive. It's as if Elisa has simply evaporated into thin air. But then, on February 14th, investigators discover something that will soon become one of the most discussed and debated pieces of evidence in the entire case. While reviewing the hotel's security footage, they find a video from February 1st showing Elisa's last known movements. And this is where the story takes a truly bizarre turn. The video shows Elisa in one of the hotel's elevators, a cramped metal box with harsh fluorescent lighting that flickers occasionally, casting strange shadows. The elevator's interior is worn, with scuffed walls and buttons that have been pressed thousands of times, their numbers barely legible. What happens next has captivated millions of viewers and sparked countless theories. In the footage, Elisa enters the elevator and appears to press several buttons. But the doors don't close. She begins to move in strange ways, stepping out of the elevator, peering around the corner, stepping back in, waving her hands in unusual patterns, and appearing to have an animated conversation with someone who isn't visible on camera. The fluorescent lights above her flicker rhythmically, adding an otherworldly quality to her movements. But here's the thing. Throughout the entire 4-minute video, no other person ever appears on camera. The elevator doors remain open far longer than they should, only closing after Elisa finally leaves the area. Her movements are erratic, almost dance-like at times, but also deeply unsettling. Some say she appears to be hiding from someone, while others suggest she's having a mental health episode. There are even those who claim she's interacting with something supernatural. The video goes viral, and suddenly the case of Elisa Lam becomes an international sensation. People around the world begin analyzing every frame of the footage, developing theories ranging from the plausible to the fantastical. Some suggest she's playing an elaborate game. Others believe she's being pursued by an unseen attacker. And still others point to the hotel's dark history, suggesting something more sinister might be at play. But what happened next would transform this already strange case into something even more disturbing. On February 19th, nearly 3 weeks after Elisa's disappearance, guests at the Cecil Hotel begin complaining about problems with the water. Some say it's coming out black, with a metallic taste that lingers on the tongue. Others report a strange, sweet smell wafting from their bathroom taps. One guest describes the water pressure as off, sometimes bursting forth with unusual force, other times barely a trickle. A maintenance worker is sent to check the rooftop water tanks, 4 large cisterns that supply water to the entire building. The tanks themselves are imposing structures, each standing about 8 feet tall and requiring a ladder to access. They're made of heavy metal that resonates with a hollow sound when struck, and their lids are designed to be difficult to open without proper tools. The worker climbs the maintenance ladder, the metal rungs cold against their hands in the February air. The Los Angeles skyline stretches out around them, a forest of concrete and glass, while the sounds of the city drift up from 14 stories below. As they approach the first tank, something seems off, and that's when they find her. Inside one of the water tanks is Elisa Lam's body, naked, with her clothes and personal effects floating nearby. The discovery sends shockwaves through the investigation and raises far more questions than it answers. You see, accessing the roof of the Cecil Hotel isn't simple. The door to the roof is supposed to be locked, and even if someone manages to get through it, the water tanks themselves are difficult to access. They're tall, cylindrical structures with heavy lids that would be challenging to open and climb into alone. The rooftop itself is a maze of ventilation equipment and water infrastructure, exposed to the elements and the relentless California sun. The tanks loom over everything like silent sentinels, their metal surfaces marked by decades of weathering. How did she even get up here, and why? But here's where things get even stranger. The autopsy report eventually rules Elisa's death as an accidental drowning, citing her bipolar disorder as a contributing factor. They suggest she may have experienced a manic episode that led to her climbing into the tank. However, many people find this explanation difficult to accept. How did she get through the locked roof access? How did she manage to climb up and into the water tank by herself? Why were her clothes found floating separately from her body? And perhaps most puzzlingly, why did the search dogs fail to find any trace of her scent on the roof during the initial investigation? The case begins to take on an almost mythical quality, with people drawing parallels to horror movies and urban legends. Some point out that in 2005, a horror film called Dark Water featured a story with striking similarities to Elisa's case, including dark water coming from hotel taps and a body being found in a water tank. Others note that shortly before Elisa's death, a tuberculosis outbreak had occurred in LA's Skid Row, just blocks from the Cecil Hotel, and that the test used to identify tuberculosis was called Lam-ELISA. Today, the case of Elisa Lam remains one of the most discussed and debated mysteries of the 21st century. The Cecil Hotel itself stands as a silent witness, its windows staring out over downtown Los Angeles like hundreds of unblinking eyes. Inside, the old elevator still runs, carrying guests up and down just as it did on that strange February night. The water tanks on the roof have been replaced, but the questions they contain remain. While the official ruling is accidental drowning, many questions remain unanswered. The hotel itself, now renamed and renovated once again, continues to draw curious visitors and amateur investigators, hoping to understand what really happened there. The lobby still echoes with footsteps, but now they belong to people searching for answers, rather than just a place to sleep. But here's the thing about the Cecil Hotel case. Perhaps what makes it so captivating isn't just the mysterious circumstances of Elisa's death, but what it reveals about our modern world. In an age of constant surveillance and connectivity, how can someone vanish so completely? How can security footage that shows us exactly what happened also leave us with more questions than answers? The case also raises important questions about mental health, about the responsibility of hotels and other institutions to protect their guests, and about the fine line between seeking justice and sensationalizing tragedy. Elisa Lam was not just a mystery to be solved. She was a young woman with hopes, dreams, and struggles, whose life came to an end far too soon and in circumstances we may never fully understand. Some say the Cecil Hotel is cursed. The old building seems to absorb the city's ambient noise, creating an unsettling silence in its corridors. The Art Deco details cast strange shadows in the afternoon sun, and the pipes still sometimes make unexpected sounds in the night. Others believe Elisa's case has a more mundane, if no less tragic, explanation. But one thing is certain: the strange case of Elisa Lam and the Cecil Hotel continues to haunt all who encounter it, serving as a reminder that even in our modern, well-documented world, some mysteries remain unsolved. And maybe that's what makes this case so compelling. Not just the questions it raises, but the ones it leaves unanswered. Because sometimes, the most disturbing truth of all is that we may never know the whole truth. Before we end this story, let me know in the comments if you've ever experienced something unexplainable in a hotel. And if you found this story interesting, make sure to check out my other videos about unexplained mysteries in historic buildings. Not because it helps with the algorithm or anything, but it totally does, but because you wouldn't want to miss out on more strange, dark, and mysterious stories delivered in story format. The next time you pass by an old hotel, or step into an elevator alone, or turn on your tap water, you might find yourself thinking about Elisa Lam and the Cecil Hotel. And maybe, just maybe, you'll wonder what other secrets lie behind those weathered walls and within those aging pipes, waiting to be discovered. But then again, some secrets are better left uncovered. As I close this story, I'm left with the same questions that have haunted investigators, web sleuths, and curious minds for years. What forces, supernatural or tragically human, converged at the Cecil Hotel that February? We've walked through the evidence, traced the timeline, and still the truth remains just out of reach. Perhaps the most unsettling thought isn't what we know about Elisa Lam's story, but what we don't. In the end, her case reminds us that sometimes the deepest mysteries aren't found in ancient legends or remote locations, but right here in our modern world, hidden behind ordinary walls and everyday moments. Until next time, remember that every building holds its secrets, every story has its shadows, and sometimes the most compelling mysteries are the ones that remain unsolved.